Another day of hard-hitting testimony at the Madlanga Commission, which is exposing, again, alleged high-level SAPS and political corruption. Witness C was on the stand and claims underworld figure Vusimuzi Cat Matlala paid R500,000 into suspended Police Minister Senzo Mchunu's presidential campaign, but also made regular cash payments to suspended Deputy Commissioner Shadrack Sibiya. Let's talk about this with Eldred De Klerk and what the implications are for this alleged level of patronage. Eldred, always a pleasure to have you in the morning. I've become so accustomed to you, just like my morning partner. We might as well be walking together every morning. But walk us through what we heard yesterday. And what I want to go to is the allegations he made, not only about Shadrack Sibiya, but also about the police minister as well, allegedly benefiting in so many different ways. 2 million rand cash was basically paid to General Sibiya, he claims. 20 Impala, 300K even for his son's wedding. And it's just, I mean, the scale to those of us watching and listening seems breathtaking. What about to you?
Absolutely, Iman, and good morning to yourself and the viewers. Iman, and this comes days after we've been removed as a country from the grey list. So it definitely says something about our banking system and where monies are going, how easy it seems to move money around. And it says something about the interest and determination, but also interest and determination to continue criminal practice because of the great returns. If we look at the kind of monies that involved, firstly, where is it coming from? How did you accumulate such wealth? And the fact that you're willing to spend to this extent to continue your criminal enterprise shows that in this case, crime in fact does pay. So we really have quite a number of institutions that's implicated in this. And further in the conversation, there was also questions about legal representative and the legal fraternity that might actually have a role in continuing to keep criminal enterprises in place. So, Iman, a lot to talk about.
Well, how will police break these alleged patronage claims? Of course, we are expecting to hear from people who are named already. Some people, people like Ria Piecha, who's come up elsewhere in testimony, wants to give her own account of the way that she's been framed in policing. So we'll expect to hear other people's perspectives on this. But as it stands, this framework and this rooted framework, I might say, of alleged patronage seems to be rife and doesn't seem to be one-off. It seems to be endemic. What do you make of how police then would need to respond to this if it is as rooted as we are being told?
Well, Iman, a number of institutions are going to have to work together. SARS for one, the banks as another. And then we also need to start looking at people's lifestyles, whether their assets and the assets of their families and significant others, and actually ties up with the kind of money that they may have made legally. So if there's a disconnect between my possessions and my ability and the quality of life, my ability to spend and my quality of life, and what I on paper seems to be making, and what I've given to SARS. If I give to SARS 100 Rand, but my lifestyle is that of 1,000, and I can't justify that and I can't say where it's coming from, that in itself should be enough to actually proceed against somebody. So, and begin that, because now you have awkward questions to answer. So therefore, we've heard from others, and we've spoken about this, how lifestyle audits have to be conducted regularly when it comes to the integrity and credibility of senior public officials entrusted with authority on our behalf, and whether they are not acting in our public interest, but in the interest of a few. So number of institutions working together, and it's going to take a while, Iman, and you're right, people have questions to answer.
I mean, it's disturbing, and not for the first time. We talked about, or we heard about money being funneled to Senzo Mchunu, who's now on a special leave to bankroll his presidential aspirations and campaigns, funding the presence of his supporters at the ANC's January the 8th party celebrations. we've highlighted this before of how problematic that would be in wanting something in return for favors like that. But we see the settling of political scores and the bidding for political favor in these exchanges, and this becoming something that's really intertwined within police structures.
Absolutely. And so we point to something that we haven't spoken about, party funding. And when does it start? And when does political campaigning and how does the institutions who have to govern the whole question around political representative get involved and understand where your sources of money is coming from? So that is definitely a discussion for another day. The point about political influence, it tends to point towards developmental opportunities. We keep saying South Africa is a developing country. We now know that we can have large infrastructure projects. We know that at least at a local government level, that's where most of the development spend is going to be. And we still have a fractious and hugely problematic tender system because it presumes that somebody has the capability to be able to deliver, rightfully so, on any request for service. Yet we also see that in this request for service and in the tender document, we see the huge markups where a roll of toilet paper, or in this case, a screw costing 38 cents or whatever it is, can cost 138 cents. I'm just sort of, as an example. So we have to start, and this is something for Treasury, it's something for the Public Service Commission, it's something for Parliament to consider. How do we continue the development agenda without creating opportunities for people to gain from it unduly economically? However, whose decision is it to award somebody a tender? How does a minister or a senior public official, say a police officer, get involved in the issuing of tenders? They should not be there at all in terms of ensuring that there's fair competition. And then, of course, the thorough investigation of those who tender for development projects, because it's public money, Iman, that has actually been spent, and it's actually enriching a few. So we have, again, a lot to talk about, and many other institutions, and it shows to fractures within our institutions and in our system of trying to fulfill the development agenda of the state.
So concerning there, I want to go to the witness himself, speaking with the deep emotion that we heard him speak, and pointing out the following, Eldred, that he had felt powerless as a detective fighting crime while his own superiors were allegedly co-opted and complicit in criminality. From your perspective, and the obvious thing is obviously, the obvious thing would be the alleged moral collapse. But how does such internal rot affect ordinary officers and their ability to protect citizens? Because that's what they're primarily there for.
Well, Iman, it says a lot. And remember, in his testimony, he had a heading that says retaliatory efforts. That's a deep concern. The fact that they felt that not only are their efforts being undermined by their superiors or their command, but it's also may come at a cost to them or their families and to each other. So we've always, back in the day, we used to define the South African police force culture as oppressive and repressive, and ranks and the authoritarian command and control, at least command, because there's no control, was oppressive and repressive. It was too easy to put people down. And in fact, the whole police culture is based on the fact that we break you down first and then we build you up. Iman, that doesn't happen. The building up doesn't happen. And the breaking down does happen, so much so that there's almost complete difference, and we've used that word before, from a senior officer who can completely command the life and the livelihood and the activity of a subordinate. And the fact that we use that word subordinate tells you something. So, Iman, these officers are constantly having to fulfill a balancing act. One, fulfill their job with integrity and without interference. And they say they want to do that without fear or favor. And if it implicates a senior officer, they should be able to be able to investigate that. Yet we sit with a anomaly, Iman, that if you come to a disciplinary hearing, for example, you can't have a junior officer presiding over the disciplinary hearing of a senior officer. You've got to get an officer of equivalent rank to be able to preside over that. Yet being a presiding officer, it's a skill, it's a particular practice, it's understanding good and judicial and fair processes, and it could be done by anybody. So it's, if I'm a general and I'm in a court, I say to a magistrate, no, you can't preside over my case because you were not equivalent ranks. And that's the same kind of silliness that we might have when we say that only those of a similar ranking can actually confront or engage those if there's any wrongdoing. So we've got to start saying, as we start thinking about how do we heal what's going on and how do we deal with the culture, this oppressive and repressive culture that continues to persist in the South African Police Service, we have to start thinking about listening and taking seriously these junior officers. Iman, let me cite a quick example just to tie up this point. In putting together the national police in the Netherlands, when they officially adopted the name Netherlands rather than Holland, and they brought their precinct polices or their principality polices together in a national police. What the change management team did was set up a reference group of junior officers who they would consult with and engage with regularly to understand what it was like for them within the police, what experiences they were having, and what remedies and responses they would have. So this is an opportunity for us to continue the conversation with these officers to say, how do we heal you, Iman, and how do we better support you in the execution of your job, because they are surely feeling the pressure at the moment.
That's critical work that needs to take place. As we listen to all of these testimonies, Eldred, all of these witnesses, C's included, it seems as if even more lead is being decanted onto the boots of Shadrack Sibiya and Senzo Mchunu. Hearing yesterday that Sibiya was given this 2 million rand cash payment for a plot of land and all the other things. Matlala apparently detailing how he met Sibiya at a farm outside Hammanskraal, which was then determined to have been the nerve center and HQ for the Big Five. But also it seemed as if, according to his testimony, some tit-for-tat between him and Senzo Mchunu, because Mchunu instructed a 360 million rand police tender linked to Matlala be terminated the day before his arrest. And Matlala, in that voice rendition yesterday, this is why I'm saying I wrote to Brown Mokhotsi asking him to tell the minister I will expose him, because, of course, he had paid money, as the allegation goes, towards his presidential aspirations. Are they being squeezed this morning? Is it becoming more and more irrefutable, what we're hearing from several witnesses with regard to Sibiya and Mchunu?
Indeed, it can't be that we're saying that Cat Matlala was backed into a corner, so what he's doing is acting out. He honestly believes that he had a functional relationship with a mutually beneficial functional relationship with the minister and with General Sibiya. And when they, in his eyes, betrayed him, at least the minister, by taking away the tender, he then says, look, I have this ammunition, which I've been building up over time, and I will use it to expose you. If I'm going down, you're going down with me. So that's the nature of these functional, mutually beneficial criminal relationships. Everybody ensures that they have enough on the other, and that when the ship sinks, they're not the only person going down.